welcome back, welcome back, welcome back. I believe that's a song, and this time we're going to dedicate that song to Josh Hart. What a win for your New York Knicks last night. 123 to 114 in Portland to now go 1-1 on this West Coast trip. But yeah, there's going to be a lot of Josh Hart praise in this show, and there should be. I feel like a lot of the time on this podcast, we talk about the detriments that Hart can bring, not just because he's having a bad game, but just unfortunately some of the things he doesn't do well end up impacting this team in negative ways. And I feel like we harp on that a lot, as we should, but there's going to be a lot of positive Josh Hart talk in this episode because they needed him. They needed him bad. They missed him. And while I don't think, you know, I'm going to get into it all. He was very good, and I'm happy he's back. But he wasn't the only Nick who played well. I thought a lot of guys played really well. Karl Anthony Towns was very good in this game. 20 points, shot 9 for 13, 11 rebounds, 3 assists, a couple of blocks. I thought he played good defense. We're going to talk about that. But he got his usual amounts of touches up top. I like that he took an early 3. He was active from the get-go everywhere. Brunson had a very strong game. 26 points, 6 rebounds, 8 assists. Was a plus 18, tied a team high. Also, I thought he had some fine defensive possessions, which we're going to point out. A real effort to get Brunson off the ball early on in this one. You saw Josh Hart, Mikal Bridges taking the ball up, initiating offense. OG Anunoby was great. 24 points for him, 7 rebounds, 3 assists, a steal, shoots 9 for 15, 4 of 7 on those threes. Good minutes early and throughout. And it was such a good OG game. Just wanted to point that out because we're probably not going to talk a ton about him since it was more of a quiet, great OG game, if that makes sense. But he was really good. Mikal Bridges was great. 18 points, 6 rebounds, 6 assists, 3 steals, a block, plus 18 in a box score. Good minutes for Mitch. We'll talk about him. Big, though, just a big team effort. And you saw all these different guys contributing down the stretch where the Knicks finished this game on a 20-8 run. They were down by a point or two to the Blazers in the fourth quarter there. It's like less than 5 minutes left. And then the Knicks close out the game on this 20-8 run, or technically 20-10 because they, that last dunk there. But, Brunson makes a couple of big stops on Denny Avia. We're going to talk more about that. OG and Deuce with back-to-back threes to put the Knicks up for good. Mitchell Robinson with the big block. That leads to another OG 3. Josh Hart, a big steal, finishes in transition on the other end. Brunson responds to Portland's basket with a 3-pointer. Josh Hart at the very end with a big floater after Portland cuts it to 5. OG with a big putback and a block on the other end to force a turnover. It went off Portland. Knicks get the ball, and it was just so many different contributions down the stretch, but I keep bringing up the defensive possessions that I liked. And listen, was the defense perfect last night? No, it wasn't perfect. There were a lot of easy Portland makes off of Nick makes and misses, which was pathetic. And then early on, there were some possessions even in the half court where the Knicks got burnt, just not helping the helper. But I thought in the half court overall, you just take away the big picture performance. I liked what I saw. And in particular, and we talked about this a lot last episode, about how the Knicks are just being way too aggressive in gap help this year, and they're not trusting guys on their switches, especially Brunson and Cat as the 2 weakest defenders on the team. But how you need to trust them on switches because that's not where the real issues are. And when you don't trust those 2 guys on their switches, it puts the Knicks in rotation way too much, and they end up giving up an open three. And we talked about it last show, how it's just bad to overcommit so often in an age where a lot of offenses can now run 5 shooters on the floor at the same time, right? And a lot of their issues this year, the Knicks, a lot of their problems with keeping guys out of the paint comes from sending way too much help to the point of attack, right? Well, last night, I thought the Knicks were much less aggressive, and they let their guys handle those Denny Avia isolations. Denny got his. He scored, I think, 25 points. He got to the foul line, did his thing, but he was 1 for 4 with 3 points in the fourth quarter, and you saw some promising possessions with both Brunson and Towns switched onto him off of his pick and rolls throughout this game. Even Mitch, maybe 3 or 4 times you saw Mitch hold his own on a Denny ISO. But it was mainly Brunson and Cat that I want to take away here because, again, you loved seeing that the Knicks didn't overhelp on those ISOs. In the first quarter, I thought there was a noticeable effort from Cat out the gate, just being active on the defensive side of the ball. I thought he did a nice job on a couple of those Sharp pick and rolls. Sharp's a good player, but he was switched on to him a few times. One of them, he gets switched on. He ends up, it's like a block or a steal, leads to a Nick bucket in transition. Another one, he's switched on to him, and because he's just in a good stance in the middle of the paint, Sharp gets to him, and then because of his presence, just in a good stance, he's forced to kick to a weak side shooter. It's a poor shooter. I think it ends up in, I forget the kid's name, but he's not that good a shooter. Brunson's on him, and he misses the shot. And then he had a really nice, at the very end of the first quarter, at the horn, he has a nice hedge and recover. And because he does that, it forces Portland into just a bad heave in the final seconds. I also think, hold on 1 second here. I think we're lagging. Okay. And there's one Brunson possession that I really loved. It was probably my favorite defensive possession of the game, where we're late in the fourth quarter. Brunson gets switched on to Denny Avdia. The Knicks don't send help. Brunson holds his own, and he forces a mid-range miss. The Knicks get the rebound, and that was a big stop. And it's the stuff like that we need to continue to see. I thought the Suns game, I thought the Knicks were promising defensively. Last night, maybe not as much, but I thought it was still promising because of the way they were handling their switches. At least, again, in the half court, the defense was better. So I wanted to start by pointing that out. Some really promising possessions there. But let's hand the game ball to Josh Hart, man. Because, again, we give this guy a lot of crap for some of the things he can't do. The things that he can do, you can't measure in the box score. Although I always like to say, nowadays you probably can. But gets his 8th game ball last night. First game back, didn't really show a ton of rust. 18 points, 6 assists, 2 steals, a block, 3 for 5 from 3, 31 minutes. The energy, the hustle, it was much needed, very noticeable. The Knicks clearly missed him. Whether you want to directly correlate those losses without him to him being out or not, I'm sure there is still a good impact with him off the floor. They definitely missed him. You can't say they didn't. And I thought he was used correctly last night, which is the most important thing of this all. Going back to the Knicks in the half court, offensively, I really liked what I saw. I thought they did a really nice job. Hart did a really nice job using the space that was given to him and the coverages that were thrown on him to create offense, because Portland was super aggressive in how they were just completely ignoring Hart. You see defenses do it all the time. This was one of the more extreme ghost coverages of the season. They just did not pay attention to him. It was basically acting like it was 4-on-5. But the Knicks did a nice job using that to their advantage. First off, I should mention that Josh Hart was taking the 3-pointers that he was given with that space. He took a couple of early ones, and, we talk all the time how when he takes those early threes, especially if he starts making them, it's going to force defenders to start closing out as the game continues, and that it's going to open up his drive game. But he was also taking the open space given to him to attack the paint and get those floaters and finishes. You saw a couple of those possessions early on. But of course, a really, really important factor is the Knicks continuing to use him in action when he gets ignored like he gets. And I want to go over a few examples where you saw that. This one came in the second quarter. Cat gets a finish out of organized offense where Hart has the big on him. The Knicks, they trigger an action off of a wedge screen for Cat. Clarkson's off the ball, one pass away on the weak corner. McHale's with the ball on the left wing. Cat's got the wing on him at the top of the key. And then Hart has the 5 helping off of him on the weak side dunker. So Clarkson, you're going to see come up to set a wedge screen for Cat. Portland doesn't switch it. Hart then hits or Portland doesn't switch that. Cat kind of gets fronted as he tries to post the wing. So Hart's going to flash middle. McHale's going to make that entry to him. As soon as Hart gets the catch, he hits a cutting Cat for an easy finish. And if you go back and watch that again, it's a possession early in the second. Because Josh Hart flashed middle, if you watch it back, his man, the big, was forced to take a tiny step up, which was just enough space to give Cat that back cut and hit him at the basket. So I thought that was very important of Hart flashing middle to force the big to come up and get on him to open up Cat. Also in the second quarter, you had a possession where Brunson gets an and one off of Hart's screening. McHale goes to Brunson in the slot as they cross half court. Brunson's now got the ball top of the key. Hart comes up to screen Kamara out of the action. That frees up the left lane for Brunson. Brunson attacks the left lane. Kamara's late to get over the top of the screen, so he doesn't recover well enough. Fouls Brunson on the floater. It's an and one. And then to open the second half, this was probably my favorite offensive possession. Brunson ends up getting a mid-range bucket out off of Hart's screening. Again, when Hart has the big, and the big is dropped as much as he was last night off of Josh Hart, you need to go to that Brunson-Hart pick and roll to get Brunson all that space to isolate the switch. You do have to be careful sometimes of not overdoing the Brunson-Hart pick and roll because it takes them away from their offense. Cat at the top. But in a game like last night where it was as extreme as it was with the Blazers, I liked seeing them go to that. So this is a possession very, very top of the second half. Brunson's coming up the court. He's got the ball on the empty side. Hart's going to screen off the guard to get Brunson to switch onto the big. Big's all the way down at the foul line behind it. Brunson isolates the big in space, gets a mid-range bucket out of it. Big-time offense. Also in the third quarter, Towns gets a 3 off of Hart's screening. Hart sets like a flare screen at the top of the key for Brunson to come off of and relocate to the weak wing. Brunson draws 2 off the screen, his man and Hart's man. And then it's a swing Brunson to Hart for Cat for a 3-pointer on the weak side as Portland's in rotation. That I felt like was just a really good way of leveraging Hart's lack of shooting gravity / Brunson's gravity to create looks for his teammate, right? Because Hart was one pass away from Brunson, off of his screen, they decide to double Brunson, and that's going to open Hart. They're going to then close. He's going to hit Cat. They close. Really good possession there using Hart's screening. And then the fourth quarter, another possession I liked. Brunson gets a 3 out of Hart's screening. The Knicks run offense through their wheel spacing here. It's like a double drag action. Mitch, the primary screener. Hart sets another flare screen. This opens Brunson on the weak corner. Mikal hits a relocating Brunson as Hart screens off Kamara. Brunson knocks down the corner. So, really good stuff. They got really good stuff out of those screens. And it's very important for the Knicks to run offense when Hart draws the big matchup. You know, they get much more efficient looks out of it than when they're not running offense. I actually didn't think, I thought they could have ran a lot more organized offense last night than they did, at least in the first half. But I'm not going to lie. I didn't love how the offense looked early in the fourth quarter with Hart out there for Cat, because you saw some of those rough moments where they can help off him and just completely focus on Cat. But to Brown's credit, he mixed and matched, and he closed the game with what made sense, right? He didn't play a ton of his second unit. He ran pretty much an 8-man staff last night. Mitchell, Robinson, and Jordan Clarkson were the only two off the bench. But, or Deuce. I knew I was missing somebody. Mitch, Deuce, and Clarkson. But you saw some really interesting fourth quarter rotations. Brown riding with the matchups. Early in the fourth, it was Clarkson, Deuce, OG, Hart, and Cat. And you saw Portland just aggressively helping off of Hart and not letting Cat beat them. So Brown makes a pivot, but it's not the pivot you might think. He takes both of them off. Brunson comes back in. So it's Brunson, Deuce, Mikal, OG, and Mitch for a little bit. And then at the end, he closes by going small because Portland was small. So he still doesn't go to Cat and doesn't go to Mitch, but instead it's Hart and OG's at the 5. It's Brunson, Deuce, Mikal, Hart, OG. So I thought that was interesting. I liked seeing that. It does raise some interesting question, right? It comes down to Hart or Cat, because you don't want to play Cat with Hart and Mitch at the same time. But if you're going to play one, it's probably best to go Cat with Mitch because of the defense you get and also the offensive rebounding gravity. And if you play Mitch with Hart, you probably just do that without Cat, just totally lean into the non-spacing lineup, because at least if you put Brunson out there with them, Brunson's capable of creating space and traffic, even though that's not ideal. But yeah, it was nice. I will say, I should add, I feel a lot of us as Knicks fans, we like to think with our emotions rather than thinking like a head coach, and that's totally normal. But the way I am such a guru. I'm such a nerd at this. I love to think like a coach all the time when I watch. So I still, it's understandable, but I still think, just thinking basketball reasons, it's definitely best for the Knicks to remain 5 out with Deuce. I wish he would start. I just think it's better for them in this age. I think Deuce provides really important things that you want in modern NBA. I think he gives you that point of attack defense, and I think he gives you that 3-point gravity, right? The space, which is super important in today's game. So that remains the lineup that I wish we would see way more, especially if the Knicks want to make this Brunson-Towns duo work, which, it's your highest paid duo. You would think, they need to maximize that with the best lineups. But against teams like Portland, who are mediocre, and with how aggressive they were off Josh Hart, no, I had no problem with those lineups last night. But I do just think long-term, talking big picture, Deuce and Cat versus Hart and Cat, if you go to the per 100 possessions, the Deuce Cat lineup is 2 points worse about defensively, 5 points worse offensively, and about 3 points better, or 5 points better offensively, and about 3 points better overall. So that's a big difference, given that it's pretty close in the sample of minutes. Deuce Cat, Hart Cat, like a 1 point differential per 100 possessions is marginal. That's a small edge. 2 points is meaningful. It catches your eye. 3-point differential is usually where it's like, that's a clear edge. There's some real separation here. Like, the way I like to think of it, it's like the gap between a 50-win team and an average team is usually around 5 or 6 points only in net rating, but that's a huge gap. So a 3-point difference in a lineup changing just one player is a big deal. I know that Deuce is the best way to unlock the Brunson-Towns duo. Deuce with Brunson and Cat versus Hart with Brunson and Cat. It is 0.7 points per 100 possessions better overall, 3.7 points offensively better, and 3 points worse defensively. And beyond metrically, we've seen when the Knicks play real basketball teams who know how to scheme Hart and have the proper personnel to, we know what happens, right? So I just want to put that out there that it was a great game. It was a great time to use what they used, but I still think in the long run it's best to go 5 out. I also want to add, I do think you saw the need for another ball handler. Now, is that a bit exaggerated sometimes between Knicks fans? Yeah, because the style of offense that Mike Brown runs, you don't totally need to obsess over that. And especially once we get to the playoffs, Brunson's going to be playing 40-plus minutes a night anyway. But you did see some of the issues last night with Josh Hart back because now Kolek is not in the rotation. So you saw, you had nobody really at the top of the fourth quarter to give you those deep paint touches to control the ball. So Brunson had to check in with 9.5 or something, maybe 10 minutes remaining. And that's kind of an issue for the regular season if you have to keep doing that. We're going to go to audio only here for these next couple minutes. My tablet's acting up. But, I just thought that was worth noting. Mitchell Robinson. I'm going to give him the game ball from the second unit. Let's see if we can pan to this graphic without the tablet here acting up on us. 6 game balls now on the year for Mitch. He had 6 points, 11 rebounds, 6 offensive rebounds, of course, 2 assists, 3 steals, 3 blocks, was a plus 11, 25 minutes played. Fantastic minutes. You're seeing him get more minutes lately. He had a season high. Well, he's currently in the midst of a season high 4 games in a row with 20-plus minutes, so they're slowly increasing the workload, and you're seeing it pay off. I loved the Cat at the 4 minutes where you had Mitch out there, and you saw it destroy Portland's zone defense in that first half, all over the glass. So they were good together, and good for Mitch. Nice game. Let's head to a quick break, and when we get back from break, we'll talk about what's coming up for these Knicks. Stay with us. Be back in a sec.
Quick break. Guys, stay connected with social media. Follow us on Instagram and X at BD4Pod, and find us on Facebook by searching BD4. Don't miss out. Join the conversation. Want more BD4? Subscribe to our YouTube channel and never miss an episode. Hit that like button, drop a comment, and share with your fellow fans. Don't forget to ring that bell so you're always the first to know when a new video drops. Love BD4 but don't have the time to sit down and watch? Don't forget to subscribe on Apple Podcasts and Spotify so you never miss an episode. And if you're enjoying the show, leave us a 5-star rating and a quick review. It helps us grow and keeps the conversation going.
Okay, welcome back to the show. Episode 966, right? Yes, 966 of the podcast. Appreciate you guys all tuning in. Always do. Let's wrap this up. And we have 2 days off. The Knicks do. They've got 2 days off coming up. So today there's no game, and tomorrow, Tuesday, they're also off. And then they go back out there to conclude their West Coast trip with a back-to-back. So that's going to be 2 10 p.m. games back-to-back, so it's going to be tough. But, fortunately, you have 2 teams that are very beatable. Wednesday, you are in Sacramento, and Thursday, you're in Golden State. So hopefully the Knicks can take care of both of those teams. If there's one you definitely want to see them win, it's the Sacramento game. Usually you have trouble on the second of back-to-backs, and then especially if that one is coming off the tail end of a West Coast trip. So that's the one you hope they can take. The Kings are also just not a good team. Let's see where they are in the standings this year. So Sacramento they're 14th. They are 9-30. They're not like they're playing well lately. They've won their last game, but they're 2-8 in their last 10. Terrible team, both home and away. So, team you should destroy. And then you have Golden State. They're 21-19. Kind of just what they've been the last number of years, and that's the team you should beat. Obviously, a much more serious team given they have that guy Curry. But let's go win. And with that said, we're going to wrap this up with our trivia question of the day. And that question is, which former Trailblazer spent 1 season with the Knicks in 2015-16 and posted a career high in total rebounds? And your hint, he spent less than a full season with the Blazers. All right. Which former Trailblazer spent 1 season with the Knicks in 2015-16 and posted a career high in total rebounds? Your hint is that he spent less than a full season with the Blazers. Okay, so that is your trivia. With that said, though, we are going to wrap this one up here. The Knicks beat the Blazers 123-114. Fun win, good win. Hopefully the Knicks can start building off this and put together a streak because it's been way too long. So, appreciate you all tuning in. I'll see you very soon. Hey guys, thank you for listening to BD4. Be sure to follow us on social media, subscribe to us on YouTube, and give us a 5-star rating on Apple Podcasts. We'll see you next time.